Meghan has now formally lost her royal title. We are finished with this. I ask that she refrain from mentioning me.
It wasn't quiet, it wasn't discreet, and it definitely wasn't something the palace could walk back. On the morning of November 27th, 2025, Buckingham Palace dropped a bombshell executive memorandum stamped with the sovereign seal, confirming the final and irreversible cut of institutional ties with Sarah, Duchess of York. No grey area, no wiggle room, no soft landing. Within minutes, an internal bulletin circulated through the Privy Council carrying a second directive, this one laser-focused on unauthorised commercial use of royal titles in media and branding. The target was unmistakable. Meghan Markle. The message from the palace was cold, sharp, and final. The Crown will no longer allow peripheral figures to squeeze relevance or revenue out of royal association. What followed was instant chaos. Global headlines exploded, constitutional experts rushed to weigh in, and behind palace walls, alarms started ringing. By dusk, reports surfaced that Sarah Ferguson, now evicted from Royal Lodge and stripped of all state-supported resources, had already opened talks with international broadcasters. This wasn't retreat, this was retaliation. Sources close to Sarah describe what's coming as a full-scale revenge interview, a televised tell-all where she could unpack years spent under partial royal protection after her divorce, her insider view of Prince Andrew's post-Epstein reputation collapse, and what she claims are brutal double standards applied to non-working royal women versus those born into the inner circle. This isn't nostalgia. This is ammunition. Fergie has nothing left to lose, one royal biographer told ITV, adding that makes her one of the highest-risk figures the palace has ever had to contain. And she's not the only one sending shockwaves through royal corridors. Just days before the decree dropped, Meghan Markle appeared front and centre on the cover of Harper's Bazaar, igniting fresh backlash over her continued use of the title Duchess of Sussex. Despite stepping away from working royal duties with Prince Harry in 2020, and despite multiple written advisories from the Royal Communications Office urging her to stop using the title in commercial settings, Meghan's branding push rolled on. In the article, a staffer reportedly announced her ceremoniously as the Duchess of Sussex, even though she was alone in a private home with just the journalist present. Inside the glossy feature, Meghan spoke about bravery, teased a new organic jam line, and hinted at an upcoming Netflix lifestyle special featuring Harry framed in staged domestic bliss. The visuals were polished, the tone was curated, but the backlash was instant. "She's still playing Duchess even after resigning," one Times columnist wrote. "It's not royalty, it's cosplay." Inside the palace, this wasn't about optics or tabloid noise. Multiple sources confirmed that as early as October, Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine raised internal alarms over what officials call brand dilution and reputational inversion. Those terms describe situations where former royals continue using institutional identity to sell products or narratives that clash with Crown interests. "It's not just about titles," one aide to King Charles clarified. "It's about narrative control." The concern wasn't nostalgia, it was leverage. Allowing royal names to drift into private commerce risked cannibalizing the monarchy's forward-facing image. Sarah Ferguson's situation hit crisis speed after decades of tolerated ambiguity. Though long divorced from Prince Andrew, she continued using the Duchess of York styling in social and charitable circles. That tolerance ended abruptly. On November 25th, she was served an official letter, hand-delivered by the Lord Chamberlain's office, informing her that all security, staffing and residential privileges at Royal Lodge would end by November 28th, 2025. She had to leave. Her reaction, according to a close friend, was shock mixed with rage and resolve. She felt betrayed, not only by King Charles, but by her own daughters. She thought Beatrice or Eugenie would step in, the source said, but they didn't, and now she's ready to speak for herself. Quiet outreach to US-based media reportedly began in late October, but intensified after her name was scrubbed from royal websites and ceremonial records in early November. Talks are said to involve ITV, CBS, and a major streaming platform interested in female-driven stories of institutional betrayal. "The palace is bracing. She's an unpredictable variable," one former aide warned. A former private secretary to Queen Elizabeth II told The Guardian the family's biggest risk right now isn't Harry or Meghan. It's Sarah, they said, because her version of the truth still lives inside the royal walls. The timing couldn't be worse. Prince Andrew is reportedly facing renewed scrutiny as Metropolitan Police review archived protection logs and private correspondence tied to his past associations with Jeffrey Epstein. A Mail on Sunday report alleges Andrew may have requested intelligence gathering related to Virginia Giuffre, triggering internal legal consultations. Pressure is coming from every direction. While Sarah threatens detonation from one side, Meghan continues her media march, seemingly unfazed by palace warnings. Her Harper's Bazaar profile, glossy yet defensive, reignited fury among palace aides who had sent at least 3 formal letters asking her to stop using the title Duchess of Sussex in branding, marketing, and business. Meghan's team reportedly argues the title was legally granted at marriage and never revoked, making it fair game. Critics push back hard. They point to deliberate placement of the title on packaging, letterheads, and interviews as passive-aggressive legitimacy laundering. She wants the mystique, not the duty, said royal commentator Claudia Michaels. She's selling jam and holiday specials under a name the Crown asked her to step away from. Sources inside Kensington Palace confirm Princess Catherine has now been granted quiet executive authority to manage communications conflicts involving brand misuse and optics protection. This includes Meghan's title controversies and any future risks tied to Sarah Ferguson. Catherine doesn't issue commands, one insider said. She sets precedent. The pressure has forced what one historian calls a full institutional reset. Gone are the days of gentle warnings and private nudges. The monarchy is shifting toward clarity and consequence. The Duchy of Cornwall is finalizing plans to repurpose Royal Lodge into a leadership development centre, while a new screening system called Royal Continuity Clearance is being built to assess extended family members on value, visibility, and vulnerability. Princess Catherine has also been designated steward of the Public Trust Index, an internal metric tracking media sentiment, volatility, and title integrity. The message is clear: the Crown is done playing defence. Under King Charles, and increasingly Catherine, the monarchy is evolving into a strategy-driven institution focused on survival and brand control. Behind every royal decree is a war room. In the weeks leading up to Sarah Ferguson's severance and Meghan Markle's latest media push, that war room operated out of Clarence House, Kensington Palace, and a fortified communications unit reporting directly to Catherine. Sources say tensions peaked not on November 27th, but 2 weeks earlier during confidential correspondence between Sarah's legal team and the sovereign's advisors. After receiving an eviction notice dated November 12th, Sarah didn't stay silent. Her lawyers responded with a counter letter citing historical goodwill from Queen Elizabeth and Sarah's past appearances at royal events. Then came the line that triggered alarms. Should this matter escalate further, the Duchess reserves the right to clarify her lived royal experience to the public, including first-hand knowledge of protocol inconsistencies and internal crises. Inside the palace, that wasn't read as emotion. It was leverage. A strategic threat of a tell-all. She was testing the system, one advisor said, trying to see if the palace would flinch, and this time, the palace didn't blink. Just days later, King Charles personally signed off on Sarah's final disengagement order, while Princess Catherine reinforced the household's stance during a closed-door council briefing. Reportedly, he said, "We are not in the business of soft extortion. The Windsor model cannot bend to blackmail." Behind palace doors, the risk assessment surrounding Sarah only intensified, with advisors debating every possible fallout scenario and mapping out multiple contingencies in case her revelations spiraled beyond expectations. The more delicate conversations weren't about what Sarah might say, but who would hear it. Rumours now swirl that Sarah's team floated early interview ideas to 2 major US networks and 1 global streamer, the most aggressive bidder, a California-based production company with a reputation for landing explosive interviews with exiled or controversial public figures, known for turning media storms into high-profile spectacles. Insiders say the company pitched a multi-format series combining a sit-down confessional with archival footage, reenactments, and exclusive commentary from unnamed insiders. The working title, Allegedly Behind the Velvet Rope, My Life Inside the Palace. A royal insider described it bluntly as the crown, but raw, real, and angry. The project promises to explore decades of personal and institutional drama, the kind that could shake Windsor from the inside out and provoke widespread public scrutiny of long-hidden palace practices. Meanwhile, the royal household was preparing for every possible fallout. Rapid response teams within the Royal Communications Office outlined multiple contingency playbooks. Option A, ignore the story entirely and starve it of oxygen. Option B, release archival documents showing Sarah's level of support over the years to counter any abandonment narrative. Option C, have Beatrice or Eugenie issue a public, diplomatically neutral statement to reduce emotional resonance. But all of this hinged on one key question: would Sarah actually speak and potentially ignite a media storm far larger than initially anticipated? So far, she hasn't signed a final contract. But according to ITV Royal Beat, six-figure offers are already on the table, and her silence comes at a price. Every palace aide knew that if she chose to speak, it wouldn't just be an interview. It could set off a chain reaction that touched royal reputations, charitable work, and media control worldwide, forcing the household to rethink traditional approaches to discretion and influence. While Sarah manoeuvred behind the curtain, Meghan Markle kept pushing in the spotlight, using royal branding in what critics now call a campaign of narrative defiance. Her Harper's Bazaar interview was just the latest offence. In September 2025, internal palace logs flagged a separate incident. Meghan's lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, launched a gift box campaign. Each box included a personalised card embossed in gold. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. The palace quietly issued a private legal advisory, but Meghan's team responded firmly. She remains legally the Duchess of Sussex until officially stripped of the title. 3 weeks later, the jam jars from the same campaign appeared on Oprah's Instagram story, and that's when Princess Catherine finally stepped in, intensifying her internal efforts to monitor royal title use and associated branding influence across all media channels. For nearly 2 years, Catherine had been quietly building the most comprehensive data ecosystem the monarchy had ever used internally, the Royal Sentiment Tracker. The system pulls data from news across 27 countries, social media engagement, search trends, long-form comment threads, and private polling from Commonwealth demographics. It doesn't just measure popularity, it measures alignment. Which narratives strengthen the monarchy, and which fracture it, no matter how glossy the headlines or how polished the external messaging appears to the public. When Meghan's Harper's Bazaar profile dropped, the Royal Tracker revealed a 1.9% drop in US approval ratings for the monarchy within 72 hours, particularly among women aged 35 to 54, a key demographic that had previously expressed sympathy for Meghan during the 2021 Oprah interview. This time, the dip wasn't tied to racism or institutional critique, it was branding fatigue. A sense that Meghan's royal aesthetic was outlasting its legitimacy and public patience, and that audiences were beginning to question her performative connection to the crown. Catherine flagged the trend immediately. She convened a private session with Clive Alderton, King Charles's private secretary, the Kensington Palace press secretary, and the royal household's head of data compliance. Her recommendation: consolidate narrative control and formalise thresholds for title misuse. One royal source called it one of the most sophisticated PR intelligence responses ever executed internally, showing a shift towards strategic, data-driven decision-making within the family's communications apparatus. On November 20th, 2025, an internal memo was issued, Title Usage, Governance and Strategic Response Framework, TUGSRF 1125. It declared the royal family would no longer tolerate external monetization of noble titles by non-working members. Violations would be flagged, recorded, and could justify title removal. Under parliamentary advisement, only working royals with active patronage or institutional duties may use titles publicly, setting the groundwork for a stricter, enforceable hierarchy. This was Catherine's architecture. Though internal, its consequences are now visible. Sarah is off the ledger, Meghan is on the radar, and the monarchy has entered a new era of structural discipline, driven not by headlines, but by data, doctrine, and unflinching resolve, signalling a transformation in how the Crown manages risk, perception, and influence across both traditional and digital media. The spark for this transformation came from just 9 words, quietly spoken by a grandmother at a Bristol charity rope line on October 18, 2025. Why is the Duchess still in that big house? She wasn't referring to Meghan. She meant Sarah Ferguson, still residing in Royal Lodge, still featured in society columns, still styled as Her Grace at events. Though Sarah hadn't held formal royal duties since 1996, her continued proximity to Windsor, especially during Prince Andrew's legal scrutiny, was a growing point of friction. Catherine recognised that this was more than gossip. It was optics erosion. She flagged it during her post-event debrief and requested a targeted sentiment study, focusing on Commonwealth women aged 50+, a demographic deeply loyal to the late Queen Elizabeth II and the memory of a stable monarchy. Results came back within 72 hours, and they were damning. 48% of respondents expressed confusion, disapproval, or concern about Sarah Ferguson's continued residence at Royal Lodge and presence at family-facing events despite holding no formal role. Even worse, 62% of US respondents believed she was still protected by the Queen, a perception that signalled fractured public trust. Legacy and legitimacy were still blurring, validating Catherine's push for royal continuity clearance, which would weeks later lead to Sarah's formal removal, marking a new era of structured oversight. While Catherine drove clarity at home, another problem emerged across the Atlantic. On November 22nd, Netflix released the teaser for With Love, a holiday special produced by Meghan's Archwell Studios. Marketed as cozy, family-centered and conversation-driven, it instead showcased forest walks, candlelit tables, jam jars, and overt product placement, creating mixed messaging about domesticity, branding, and royalty. Notably absent were Meghan's extended family, any references to royal relatives, or meaningful glimpses of Harry beyond a brief kiss. The reaction was immediate and harsh. Red triangles flashed in audience metrics. British press dubbed it Christmas in Exile, while American blogs mocked the broccoli wreath in the trailer. Within hours, the hashtag Duchess of Jam trended on X, cementing the public perception that the special's cozy image masked calculated branding. Even loyal viewers expressed discomfort. The issue wasn't Meghan's politics, it was her ongoing performance of royalty. Even in banal domesticity, audiences asked, "She says she wanted privacy, but this feels like staged solitude. Where's the family? Where's the heart?" And Camilla's silence added weight. In past media storms, Queen Camilla had offered subtle alignment with Charles or the press office, but this time she remained absent from meetings and refused to approve any media engagement defending Sarah or clarifying Meghan's title. A Clarence House staffer revealed, "Camilla is now aligning with structure, not sentiment." One internal note reportedly read, "No comment is a boundary, not an omission." In that silence, a message was sent, especially to Sarah Ferguson, who had long considered Camilla an ally. But the most telling silence came from Catherine. No pushback, no rebuttal, just action. Within 48 hours, all official royal digital platforms were updated. Sarah Ferguson's name and bio were removed. Meghan Markle's title was quietly removed from archived photo captions. Public-facing databases of working royals no longer included either woman. The digital reset was surgical, efficient, and absolutely deliberate. No announcement, no spectacle, just a cold, clean reset. The Crown doesn't fear spectacle. It fears exposure, the kind that peels away layers of protocol to reveal what truly lies beneath. And in the closing weeks of November 2025, that exposure risk didn't come from palace aides or paparazzi lenses. It came from 3 unconnected but dangerously parallel forces: a disgraced prince's fading firewall of enablers, a duchess in exile with silent benefactors, and an American celebrity still marketing monarchy without consent. The 4th phase of the monarchy's purge wasn't punishment. It was containment, spider-like networks of enablers, Andrew's unravelling fortress, and institutional exposure intersected with uncanny precision. Prince Andrew's fall from grace has never been clean. While he was removed from official duties in 2020 and stripped of military affiliations and patronages in early 2022, His day-to-day privileges remained unusually intact, most notably his continued residence at Royal Lodge and quiet reliance on privately retained security and staff. Now, for the first time, that soft landing is under legal and institutional scrutiny. November 17, 2025. A report in the Mail on Sunday revealed that the Metropolitan Police had received archived emails suggesting Andrew asked a former close protection officer to investigate Virginia Giuffre's legal advisors during his civil lawsuit in 2021. Though the report stops short of proving misconduct, it triggered renewed inquiries into Andrew's informal network of advisors, many still connected to him through Sarah Ferguson. This wasn't just a fall from grace, it was an unraveling of decades of buffered loyalty, discreet favours, and protected networks. Former royal aides commented that Andrew had benefited from controlled dissent, insulated by loyalty and personal protection, but that buffer may now be gone. Sources within the MET Serious Crime Directorate confirm they've begun contacting former royal household staff, including a retired driver who shuttled between Epstein-linked estates, 2 now resigned private security contractors, and a former communications assistant from Sarah's team believed to have handled media shielding for both Andrew and Fergie from 2018 to 2020. What's at stake? Not charges, at least not yet, but testimony. And should Sarah go ahead with her tell-all interviews, there's growing concern that Andrew's firewall will collapse entirely. One palace insider put it bluntly: if Sarah talks, Andrew bleeds. Luggage, relocation, comportment, a luxury exile, everything is under scrutiny. Officially, Sarah Ferguson has been expelled from Royal Lodge. Unofficially, she has landed softly and strategically in Comporta, Portugal, a former fishing village turned elite hideaway home to discreet villas, celebrity architects, and billionaires escaping taxes and tabloids alike. Sarah's property, according to Portuguese land records, is leased under a shell trust, registered in Luxembourg, and connected to a European philanthropic foundation. The lease was secured in August 2025, months before the eviction notice, by a close friend of Princess Eugenie working through an intermediary firm. Eugenie and Beatrice, while offering no public resistance to their mother's removal, quietly coordinated her retreat. Eugenie handled security logistics and travel documents, while Beatrice oversaw the moving team that transferred Sarah's personal belongings from Royal Lodge to a private hangar at RAF Northolt. The message was clear: we love our mother, but we won't risk the crown. One royal watcher noted that Sarah was escorted out safely, with precision, and given a controlled landing. Sarah now resides in a 4-bedroom coastal estate with private chefs, a gated driveway, and discreet staff. Portuguese media describe her as elegant yet sombre, often seen walking alone by the dunes, hooded and phone in hand. Though officially no longer aligned with the royal household, she continues to use the Duchess of York branding on social media and charity links, a violation of palace guidelines, daring the institution to react. A former palace protocol officer observed, "Every post, every press leak is a reminder. She knows things." While Sarah fades into discreet exile, Meghan Markle has entered what insiders call her monetization endgame. The upcoming With Love holiday special, streaming soon, may be her final production tinged with royal colour before regulatory pressure forces full brand separation, according to leaked production notes obtained by The Telegraph. The show includes a segment titled Traditions We Brought from the Castle, a handwritten holiday recipe from the Duchess, and 2 voiceover clips in which Harry refers to Meghan as "my Duchess." Netflix is already under fire for blurring the lines between fiction and royal fact. Behind the scenes, British parliamentary discussions have resumed over a possible legislative measure akin to the Titles Deprivation Act, which would formally remove or restrict public use of noble titles in foreign commercial contexts. One senior MP summarised internal sentiment: "The time has come to draw a line. You're either in the system or you're out." For Meghan, that line may come sooner than she thinks. Amid these overlapping crises, the royal household's response has been tactical, not theatrical. Royal Lodge has been designated as a public serving space under the Duchess of Cornwall, with plans to launch the Royal Leadership Academy in mid-2026, targeting global youth leadership programs. A special task force under Princess Anne and Princess Catherine has been formed to handle reputation partitioning, separating personal family sympathies from public institutional affiliations. The Crown's public-facing site no longer lists Meghan, Harry, or Sarah Ferguson in any operational, ceremonial, or heritage capacity. In the past, royal scandals faded over years. Now they're surgically severed in months. On the surface, the season appeared festive, warm lights, cosy sweaters, cinnamon candles. But inside Westminster Abbey, where rehearsals were underway for the annual Christmas Eve service, something felt off. Across the Atlantic, Meghan's With Love special had just gone live on Netflix, and it didn't just cross a line, it burned it. Meghan's premiere was marketed as cozy seasonal viewing, but viewers quickly noticed a thinly veiled layer of royal nostalgia, soft focus, and lifestyle branding. The most controversial moments, Meghan introduced a segment titled Traditions We Cherish from the Castle, paired with stock footage resembling Windsor's St. George's Chapel, a child's handwritten letter addressed to the Duchess under a faux gold crest, and Harry casually referring to their family as a branch of the royal oak just rooted in California. Within hours, British press headlines erupted. Meghan's Netflix special hijacks royal heritage, declared the Daily Mail. The Times reported the palace was incensed by castle references. Sources inside Abbey rehearsals confirmed Prince William was shown the footage in real time. During a break, he watched silently, then stood and said one thing: "We end this." That evening, Prince William convened an unscheduled closed session with senior advisors from Kensington Palace, Clarence House, and the Duchess of Cornwall. In what aides described as a 40-minute directive meeting, William laid out a threefold mandate: accelerate formal dissociation protocols, instruct legal teams to explore international options to curb unauthorized use of noble titles in commercial media, freeze unofficial access to royal imagery, tighten intellectual property protections around palace visuals, ceremonial footage, and symbols, and reframe the public narrative. A new social campaign, In Service, Not in Spotlight, would elevate current working royals while drawing a hard line between accountable service and self-promotion under royal branding. While William moved decisively, Princess Catherine chose a far subtler strategy: strategic silence. In the days following the With Love controversy, Catherine appeared at 3 public engagements, visiting NHS children's wards, addiction recovery programmes, and refugee women's shelters in Manchester. She never mentioned Meghan, but she didn't have to. Wearing modest attire without brooch or crest, Catherine simply read stories to children, served meals to families, and was photographed hugging a young girl who whispered, "Are you the Queen?" Catherine smiled and said, "Just someone who cares." The contrast was unmissable. As Meghan broadcast branded nostalgia, Catherine embodied unbranded duty. And while Sarah Ferguson hovered in exile, ready to speak, the Crown's message was already loud through action, order, and clarity, long before the year ended. And yet, the Crown's battle to protect its integrity had reached a dramatic apex after weeks of rising tensions, leaks, and legal memos. The question now looms like fog over the gates of Windsor: what will Sarah Ferguson do next? Because according to multiple palace sources, Sarah is no longer bluffing. A source familiar with the situation confirmed that Sarah Ferguson has recorded 3 tell-all interviews, 1 for a UK-based outlet, and 2 with international media groups, including an unnamed American streaming platform. The interviews, insiders claim, contain sensitive accounts involving her marriage to Prince Andrew, secret financial arrangements, and even conversations she allegedly witnessed between senior royals during the Epstein fallout. But that's not all. Sarah's legal team is reportedly negotiating a clause: if no financial or housing resolution is reached by January 15th, 2026, all footage will be released. In other words, this is blackmail in designer heels. Buckingham Palace has issued no official response, but one high-level aide put it bluntly: she's acting like a woman who's been cornered and knows she has nothing left to lose. That's exactly what makes her dangerous. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle's Montecito bubble continues to dim. Days after the With Love Netflix special, reviews were brutal. Variety called it polished, but hollow. The Telegraph dubbed it a soft-focus eulogy to a title she no longer owns. Attempts to rebrand through lifestyle content, from luxury jam to wellness collaborations with California brands, have been met with declining interest and digital ridicule. One viral tweet read, "She went from royal tours to rosemary jam in under 4 years. That's not a pivot, that's a free fall. And now, with her insistence on using the Duchess of Sussex title despite formal warnings, Meghan is drifting toward a legal standoff, not just reputational, but institutional. The palace, aware that Sarah and Meghan represent two very different threats, is consolidating authority behind a single public figure. Catherine, Princess of Wales. Princess Catherine has assumed an expanded role under an internal mandate titled the Integrity Compact. She is now the chief overseer of all public-facing royal initiatives, including crisis communications, branding, usage enforcement, and mental health visibility programs. While Sarah threatens to expose and Meghan clings to borrowed royal shine, Catherine is redefining what royalty means in the 21st century. Not status, not scandal, but service and structure. In doing so, she sends a clear message, not just to the public, but to every royal watching from the sidelines. The era of borrowed crowns is over. The real work begins now. The palace will release its annual State of the Crown report. Early drafts suggest it will be unusually bold, addressing public trust, abuse of titles, and the monarchy's duty to act with moral clarity. It may not mention Sarah or Meghan by name, but it won't have to, because 2025 ends not with a coronation or celebration, but with a reckoning. At the centre of it stands not a queen by title, but a princess with a spine of steel. Her approach is methodical, quiet, and resolute, proving that influence without drama is far more powerful than any headline or viral tweet. She has taken control of narrative, data, and perception, leaving no ambiguity for former royals testing boundaries or the public's sense of expectation. Thank you for reading this full investigation. If you found this report insightful, shocking, or revealing, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on royal developments. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think Sarah Ferguson will do next? Will Meghan Markle finally step back, or is the next chapter of this royal saga about to explode? The monarchy may endure, but the silence around it no longer will.